basically. So they only specialize in those two age groups. It's possible.
It could just be seed funding, right? That's where you start when you start eating. You start with basic, simple foods, and then
just go with apple seed. That's kind of right in itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, but you don't But you don't need seeds. It's true, but you plant them. But apple seeds also contain cyanide, so maybe that's not such a good thing.
That's actually a perfect analogy, and it's got to be in a well of fertilizer for it to work. I think we're getting somewhere here.
Right.
Uh-oh. There's a Waze hack.
Uh-oh. Let me... All right, we're live. We got audio, stream, everything. All right, killing audio.
Bye, audio. Yeah, I'll just make that one a real fast one off the top. And then Roger, you're on Apple Watch. Which might have outsold the iPhone.
How many Rogers can stand on the Apple Watch? On the head of an Apple Watch.
Count the number of Rogers on the head of an Apple Watch. All right, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
Money burning a hole in your pocket? Then your money's probably on fire. Seek medical attention. If you want to support your favorite podcast, however, go to dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, April 26, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Mr. Iyaz Akhtar of CNET.com fame, and of course, host of the shows on the GFQ network with Andrew Zarian. Andrew Zarian's network. Do you host a show with Andrew Zarian, though?
No, not normally.
No.
It's just usually me or me and my buddies Jonathan Strickland and Eric Sandine talking about horrible things, as we will do tomorrow live on gfqlive.tv at 9 p.m.
And of course, the amazing videos and audio that you do for CNET as well. Don't forget all of that. But we're here to talk about some technology news today, like we used to do in the olden days.
That sounds great. Let's do it.
All right. That's fine. It's enough about reminiscing. Researchers at the University of California, Santa Barbara have found a way to find out location information about Waze users. You're going to see a lot of headlines that say you can be stalked on Waze, which I guess is kind of true. This is really just security researchers figuring out a technique to intercept SSL information from any app by using the way apps communicate with servers. So it's more interesting than just about Waze. Waze has been working with the researchers to address the concerns. They're presenting their paper at a conference called Mobisys, which focuses on mobile systems, at the end of June in Singapore. Interesting for the wrong... I think people are going to be really interested in this for the wrong reasons, because they're like, oh, I can be tracked on Waze. You could be tracked on any app.
I'm just stuck on Mobisys. It sounds like some kind of skin condition.
Yeah, Mobisys, you apply 4 days of conference going, and then it goes away. At the Dropbox Open Conference in London, Dropbox announced a preview of a forthcoming feature called Project Infinite. I'm very excited about this. I've wanted them to do it for a while. It's something Microsoft used to do in OneDrive and then took away in Windows 10. The feature shows all your files and folders in a Dropbox account, whether they're actually on the device you're using or not. So it doesn't matter if you're on a laptop, desktop, how much storage you got. It says, here are all the files. If they are locally available files stored on the hard drive, they show up with a check mark. You're familiar with that if you're a Dropbox user. If they're not stored locally, they show up with a cloud symbol, and you just click on them and they download and you can access that file as if it was stored locally. Dropbox did not announce pricing or availability, although the descriptions all showed them in business settings. So we don't know whether this will just be available to business users or not, but I'm very much want this feature.
Yeah, I know. With small SSDs, I would want to be able to like offload stuff somewhere else, so my desktop and laptop can access the same stuff all the time without it being so weird.
Yeah, a lot of the reason that I always go for the largest hard drive I can is I don't want to have to manage what stuff shows up in Dropbox. I just want to not have to think about it. And this would mean that there would be less for me to think about it. I'm also curious about how you manage if they change the way you manage what stuff actually syncs and what doesn't. When you click on something and it downloads, how do you make sure it doesn't stay downloaded if you've got a small drive? A lot of details that I'm curious about as well.
I'm sure they'll figure it out with the business users. YouTube has redesigned the homepage for its iOS and Android apps. Full disclosure, Tom's wife works for YouTube. Replacing the small thumbnails and lists will be a single feed of recommended videos with larger thumbnails. Only about 2 items will show up on the screen at a time. An improved algorithm creates the list. YouTube is also introducing 6-second long unskippable bumper ads. The new option will be available to all advertisers in May.
Yeah, a lot of people are upset about this 6-second thing because they're unskippable. The current skip thing is 5 seconds. Like, you have to see 5 seconds before you can skip it. So it's only 1 more second, and then the ad's actually over. I'm not sure how much that bothers me.
Does it apply to YouTube Red?
No, I mean, if you're on YouTube Red, you don't see the commercials anyway. So that's a good point. I'm never going to see this on my actual regular YouTube account. I only ever see ads on YouTube when I'm using the Daily Tech News Show account.
Yeah, I'm going to stick to Red then.
Yeah, and the new homepage on iOS. I don't really watch YouTube on iOS a lot, but or Android, but people who do, I'm sure will find this will benefit them. Discovery is one of the big issues, especially on YouTube. Google, Ford, Volvo, Uber, and Lyft are part of a new group called the Self-Driving Coalition for Safer Streets, or SEDUCSIS, to push for the U.S. federal government to help ease the way for self-driving cars. They basically just want to harmonize all the rules because all the states are coming up with different rules. Reuters reports the group wants to have one clear set of federal standards. Former National Highway Transportation and Safety Administration head David Strickland will be the coalition's counsel and spokesman. So it's a classic case of ex-government official becomes lobbyist. The NHTSA plans on having its guidance on autonomous vehicles by July, and so I think this coalition is trying to make sure they have an influence on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to know from the inside out how the stuff works. Because, you kind of have the inside baseball thing. Another selfie. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to add that I do think that, I don't have a problem with the way California is approaching this. I think it's very conservative and very cautious. But if California says one thing and then Florida says a different thing and Michigan says a different thing, that's going to slow down adoption of self-driving cars because you'll have to deal with all these different rules. So harmonizing those rules is probably a good thing.
Yeah, then the other thing is the companies without this kind of harmonization would have to figure out what's the most restrictive, apply that to the car, and the car's not going to know. It doesn't have to know where it is to change the rules. So you're going to be done with the most restrictive version of the car. So you want it to actually have as much function as you can. Let's talk about drones. Another selfie drone is on the way. China's 00 Robotics, no, it didn't stutter, it's called 00 Robotics, has raised $25 million to build Hover, a self-flying UAV with a 4K capable 13-megapixel camera. Now, software provides electronic image stabilization, because there's no optical image stabilization, and face and body recognition. It's 240 grams, so there's no need to register this drone in the U.S. It's expected to ship this summer.
I'll just float there and take video of you. Great for walk and talk shots if you don't have money for a cameraman, I guess.
As long as the audio is recorded separately.
This is awesome for weddings. Just follows you right down the aisle.
I just have this horrible picture of getting caught in a veil.
No, it knows how to stay far away from you, I hope.
I don't know if it has veil detection.
It doesn't. Yeah, it didn't say anything about veil detection. You're absolutely right.
That's stealth technology, veiling.
Nokia announced it intends to purchase Withings, the French electronics company that focuses on health applications. Nokia will spend 170 million euros to do so. Nokia calls digital health, quote, an area of strategic interest. This kind of focuses Nokia's plans a little bit. Don't forget they acquired Alcatel-Lucent to strengthen the networking business. They sold the maps business. And Withings will be the first company they've acquired recently to bolster the Nokia Technologies business, which right now licenses out the Nokia brand name. They're behind the N1 tablet. They're behind that VR camera we talked about a while ago. And, of course, they handle the mobile patents, which is probably the biggest revenue generator for them. So actually having a digital health company like Withings, which has a pretty good name for this stuff, I think will be beneficial. And it's interesting to think of Nokia becoming a health company.
Yeah, they were the Where company, and now I guess How Are You company.
Yeah,
that's what they're going to be.
How you doing? How are you faring?
That'll be the best tagline. Nokia, how you doing?
How you doing?
Because they're from Brooklyn now. Lionsgate is making its feature films available for rental through Steam, the gaming store. The Hunger Games, Reservoir Dogs, and The Cabin in the Woods are among the titles available Movies have to be watched within 48 hours of renting and can only be played in Steam while connected to the internet. So you get to kind of stream, not so much on Steam.
Yeah, I feel like people want this to be cooler than it is because it's on Steam. They're like, yes, I want to buy movies through Steam like I buy video games through Steam, except there really isn't, a set-top box app for Steam. Not saying that you can't do Steam in your entertainment center, but there's not like a Roku app for it or something like that. And these are just rentals. I feel like Steam is doing this so that if you get an HTC Vive, maybe, you can maybe watch some videos in there, watch some movies in there. Lionsgate is just wanting to find another place to rake in some more money, so it makes sense there too.
Yeah.
U.S. Department of Justice and Federal Communications Commission have approved Charter Communications to purchase Time Warner Cable and Bright House networks. Charter must agree not to limit licensing to online providers. In other words, they can't get in the way of Hulu and Netflix acquiring the video that is being licensed to Charter as well. Charter also agrees not to allow usage-based pricing, not to impose data caps or charge interconnection fees to providers like Netflix. Full FCC board is expected to vote to accept the deal. Charter would become the second largest internet service provider in the United States.
I got to do some research on Charter because I was already expecting Comcast to be my new Time Warner overlord, but that got canceled. Now it's Charter. Got to read into them to see if my Time Warner service will get better, worse, or stay the same.
It's kind of the new way of regulating companies. The FCC says, "Oh, we know you're going to sell yourself to somebody at some point, or you're going to want to acquire somebody. So we'll put our regulations imposed on you in order to get you to, in order to get us to approve the merger." Charter actually doesn't do a lot of these things already. Time Warner Cable does. Time Warner Cable is famous for testing out data caps. So it may be easy for Charter to agree to these things. Say, yeah, absolutely. It's never been our bag anyway.
It's kind of sad though, because Time Warner was working so hard to get sold. So they were getting nicer and nicer to the customer. So who knows if that'll continue?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Charter subscribers think of this, because I know Cablevision seems to be the most customer friendly of them. Charter's not too bad, although they've done some stuff. Usually it's just bad with outages and things from what I can hear. But yeah, it is still consolidation of an ISP, which gives an ISP more leverage. And I think what the FCC is doing here is saying, we just need to make sure that you don't have the ability to abuse your leverage.
From reality to virtual reality, HTC is putting $100 million into a startup accelerator for virtual reality. The pilot program starts in May in Beijing, while HTC will take a small amount of equity in exchange for its support and coaching. The results do not have to be exclusive to the HTC Vive, so other VR things can actually use it. If Beijing goes well, HTC plans to expand to San Francisco and Taipei. It's an interesting move.
Yeah, and a lot of times I think we think of the HTC Vive as being a Steam device because it's in partnership, but HTC is banking on it as being its future. And if it would be interesting to see if this pays off, they start acquiring some really good stuff. The HTC Vive gets a few cool apps first because they come out of this program. HTC in the future might be thought of as a VR company, and we just laugh like, remember when they sold phones? That was funny.
Yeah, I think people have a hard time remembering they sell phones now.
Yeah, although I guess phones are also a vector for VR, so they might not give up that. Bloomberg reports mobile phones sold in India must now include an emergency button. Well, not yet, actually. They must include an emergency button by January of next year, and they must include satellite-based location technology from the start of 2018. All mobile phones, not just smartphones. On a smartphone, the button must be a dedicated key. On a smaller phone, a non-smartphone, you have to be able to hold down the 5 and the 9 to activate it. The button must dial emergency services when activated. Those are just getting ramped up in India. 112 is due to become the nationwide emergency response number in the next few months.
Or be an interesting design for these phones if they actually make it out of India as well. Twitter announced it had 310 million monthly active users last quarter, up from 302 million a year ago and 305 million last quarter. Twitter also announced revenue of $595 million and a non-GAAP earnings per share of 15 cents. Now, analysts expected 10 cents a share and revenues of $608 million. So they expect certain things.
I mean, it's funny, like usually they're saying, well, Twitter's making plenty of money. They're just not getting enough users. This time, they didn't make as much money as Wall Street wanted them to. The users went up They didn't go up very much. It's overall just a blah to negative report for Twitter. And I think it's a little early for Jack Dorsey to really have had a big effect on things, but next couple of quarters, they're going to have to start showing a turnaround.
Yeah, when they grab those rights, I mean, they had the rights to the NFL like on Thursday, so that's going to be a really strange experiment to see how that shakes out.
Yeah. And that won't happen until next year, so got to give them a little time. At least it's not going backwards, at least not yet. Apple has a lot of spotlight on their earnings, posting quarterly revenue of $50.6 billion and quarterly net income of $10.5 billion, or $1.90 per diluted share. These results compare to revenue of $58 billion and net income of $13.6 billion, or $2.33 per diluted share a year ago. So in other words, revenue went down, earnings per share went down. iPhone unit sales were also down from a year ago for the first time. They were 51.2 million, down 16%. This everybody's been worried about Apple for a long time, and Apple's been doing fine and setting records. This is what people were worried about right here.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to innovation, Apple's way ahead for years. The question is whether this phone can withstand all the competition out there. But the fun part about this, as consumers, is if this actually scares Apple, and they've probably been able to project this a while ago, they might be trying some really crazy stuff soon, like a car.
No, we've been hearing all kinds of reports about that, and they obviously have hired people with car expertise. So is it too late? I mean, probably not. That seems alarmist, but they should have had their next big hit by now, even if their iPhone sales were finally slowing, to say, yes, but the Apple Watch is absolutely taking off. And there's a lot of folks out there who are, reading the tea leaves and saying that the Apple Watch actually outsells the iPhone this quarter. Apple doesn't report those Apple Watch numbers separately, and that's probably for a reason. If they were getting record numbers, one would think they would report them separately. Maybe they will be reported separately. Maybe we'll hear more about that later on today. These numbers just came out while we're recording this, but it's not like the iPhone where they're like, well, so what if iPod sales are declining? Look at those iPhone numbers, right? iPad sales have been declining for a while. They don't have the obvious heir to the throne yet.
Right. I think the big secret one right now is still Apple TV. If that thing ever gets its act together where it has that TV service that's been rumored forever, maybe that's their thing. They're just like waiting to pull out this thing like, hey, we got this thing. Oh, we don't have the deal yet. We don't have it. Looks like they've had a lot of false starts, so that might be their next big thing.
Thanks to everybody who submitted things we used on our subreddit. We had some fantastic folks in there. Motang was in there. SP Sheridan was in there. All kinds of folks submitting stuff and voting on our subreddit. Get in there and be one of them. Submit stories and vote at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. And that is a look at the headlines. All right. We'll wait for Apple to have their earnings call, which may have happened by now. We'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow. I wanted to talk with Iyaz today about Beyonce's Lemonade album. Now, Iyaz, have you listened to the album? Because it's not really exactly what we're going to talk about.
No, I haven't listened to the album. I've seen clips from the visual album, but I have not actually listened to it.
I actually watched the HBO special on Saturday night, and it was a lot of honesty. Somebody's calling it fan fiction. They're saying it's exaggerated, and of course it is because it's music. But the interesting thing was it went away after it was on HBO for a day. Then it was only going to be available on Tidal. The big thing over the weekend is exclusive to Tidal. Well, it turns out it was exclusive streaming on Tidal. You can buy the album on iTunes and Amazon, although I checked on Google Play earlier and I haven't seen it available on Google Play. So they're even restricting where you can buy it, but they put it on iTunes. That's where a ton of people buy music. And you were pointing out that this exclusive model, even though it's not exclusive to Tidal for purchase, does complicate your life as a music fan.
Yeah, I mean, you got to figure out which service, one, you're paying money to. So if you're going to have streaming, all you can eat with either Spotify or Tidal at this point, or Google Play, or Apple Music, or whatever the heck you want to have, you have to actually start thinking who's going to be where. And it's almost like, instead of it being this all-you-can-eat model, you lose that entirely. You've got to choose, do I like this band more? Am I willing to buy their stuff and import it in? Because that's why I use Google Play Music, because I can actually upload my music to it. So if I have old CDs or I just want to take and buy DRM-free MP3s, I can just upload it there. I can have access everywhere. But that's still a little hacky for something that should be better.
Yeah, and when digital music was new and the majority of people were still buying things on CDs, I was willing to go through some hoops to make my listening happen. And a lot of times that involved ripping CDs, right? And it was like, okay, I'm managing my digital files. These days, digital music is where things are. There's often digital exclusives, which I don't mind because I personally don't buy CDs much, if at all, anymore. Apologies to Nate Langson, who I know is still doing that because he thinks it's the best way. And maybe he's right. Maybe I should go back to thinking that way, because what's happening now is I looked at streaming services as easing my need to manage my music collection. I no longer had to buy things and try to figure out how to get them from one service into another. So if I buy them on Amazon, how do I put them in my iTunes collection? Or if I buy them on iTunes, how do I get them into my Google collection? I could just have a streaming service and go from there. And now, as we start to struggle with this business model, I have to think about who I want to listen to. Like, oh, wait, do I want to listen to Beyoncé? Well, if I don't, then I don't really care. But the next artist that does this might be somebody you do care about. And then you're like, oh, I guess I'll switch to Tidal. I mean, then the next artist is exclusive on some other platform. You might have to switch back. You're going to have multiple streaming services. And then it just becomes way too complicated. And I don't know that it's good for the artist, where music has generally thrived at being listenable everywhere and purchasable almost everywhere.
Yeah, I was thinking about when, I think it was Life of Pablo, that was the big Kanye thing, was like, it's never going to be anywhere else but Tidal. This is the only place you're going to be able to get it. Shows up later on Apple Music, I believe. And the other thing is, in that little interim period, because some people were like, screw that, I'm not doing Tidal, that album was downloaded a crap ton of times. So I'm not saying that it forces piracy, but if you're going to put up these walls, what used to be easily accessible, and it was easily gotten on different services, once you start putting up the walls, you have to run against the people going, well, is it worth my money to go to that service, or am I going to steal it? Because that could be easy, because these files are tiny compared to the old days. This is music files we're talking about an hour of music. It's tiny. And it's not like the 99-cent model. We're talking about $9.99 a month, or you're going to sign up for a free trial and listen to the music. So it's just, it seems a little strange. Also, I really find it odd that these exclusive windows are strangely short. Here's 24 hours. Because imagine all the people who signed up. And they're like, oh, I have to get Tidal to listen to Beyonce. And then they find out they could just buy it the next day for $18 in total. Right. 2 months of Tidal music, I guess. But still, it seems a little bit like it could be bad for the consumers who are just trying to listen to music.
And when Rdio went away, one of the frustrations I had is I'd spent some time building some playlists there, and it wasn't impossible to export those playlists, but it was a pain. And the services don't make it easy to move even just your list of songs between them. And of course, there's no guarantee that the service you move to will have all the same songs as the service you're moving off of. So once you lock yourself into a service, you kind of want to stay there because it's a pain to move. And if suddenly the artist you want isn't there anymore, it's like, well, what can I do? One of the reasons I picked Google Music was the ability to take my own songs that I purchased and upload them, and even if they're not available in the service, for instance, Beyonce, I can buy Beyonce's album on iTunes, upload it to my Google Music account, and play it there without having to worry. So it gave me the flexibility, but that's still a lot of work to go through. And my guess is, I'm curious what you think, Iyaz. My guess is this is all growing pains as we figured out that streaming was a better option to fight piracy than DRM. And when I say we, I mean the music industry. Now the music industry is playing around to see what advantages they can get. And that's fair. You want to figure out what the best system for you is. But that's going to hurt the consumer for a while until the consumer puts that pressure back and says, well, no, you're not going to sell as many albums because I'm not going to buy them. And we figure out a new way to get everybody paid, which seems to be the big driver here. Is they're like, we're not making enough on streaming. And I still, my hunch is that we're not making enough on streaming because there aren't enough people. We haven't got streaming to scale yet. But when it does get to scale, which it's getting to more and more, the money's going to be flowing in large amounts.
Yeah, with things like, I'm thinking about T-Mobile's Un-Carrier movement, where the music itself isn't counting against your caps. It's those caps that stop people from listening to those kinds of music on their portable devices, I think, in general, because once you hit that cap, you don't want to pay all that extra money. I was reading an LA Times article about basically what the music industry is doing now, essentially comparing it to windowing for movie releases.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, actually, that's kind of what this is like. It's the exact same thing. You're seeing stuff come out. There's this little window of exclusiveness on whether it's on HBO or it's showing up on an in-flight movie or at hotels or whatever before it shows up on Blu-ray or whatever else. That had a ton of problems over time, and that's still not even figured out. Yeah. So if the music industry wants to figure something out, they should go, hey, this is weird. So the music industry actually has to look to the movie industry as an example and figure out what is a mistake, a pitfall they shouldn't make. I'm not saying to follow the example, but to view it and figure out what is a better way to handle this. Because if you burn a consumer enough, they just won't bother with this. And as important as these stars are, I mean, you got a big name like Beyoncé, that's going to get people to really pay attention to something like this. But the smaller artists, they have to suffer basically because they have to figure out which one do we sign with as well. Like, do those albums, or those record labels, that is, do they go to Tidal because there's a really big star right now, or do they go to Taylor Swift, who was on Apple, who was a really big fan of them for a little bit? Like, that could be a huge, a lot of rolling effects here, waterfall effect, as you will.
Yeah, and one of the ways that artists make the most money these days is touring and merchandise. And Mr. Green in the chat room points out Spotify is a horrible way to make money if you're not a major artist. Yes and no. It's a better way than existed before streaming, but it doesn't have the scale to pay you large checks. You can't make all your money off Spotify any more than you could on radio. Radio is an even worse way to make money because they don't pay you anything. The whole bet with radio was if people hear my song, they'll want to buy it and see my concerts. Streaming is a little bit better because you actually make some money. But the idea, again, is if people stream my songs, they'll want to come to my concerts. So if you're an artist of Beyonce's caliber who has full control and your husband owns Tidal, I get why you're like, you know what, let's try this out. Let's see what happens. You know, I'm a big artist. People are going to want my album. If I'm experimenting, though, I'm not going to go exclusive. What I want is as much exposure as possible on streaming, radio, Pandora, anywhere I can get it, so that people want to come out to my shows, pay money to see me, and buy my merch. Because that's where more of the money is going to be made.
Just trying to think, could you imagine if songs were exclusive to radio stations? It's like, that's it. It's only on 100.3. That's the only place you're going to hear it.
You know, that's a really good point because there were exclusives to radio stations occasionally where like a record company would say, we'll give this to you a couple of days before release so you get an exclusive preview. But it was only a couple of days, right? And I guess that's what Tidal ended up doing. It was exclusive to Tidal for a couple of days before it was available for purchase. So I don't mind that so much. If it's like, well, Tidal has the exclusive for a week, then it'll come to Spotify and everything else. That seems fair. Like, all right, they you know, I get it. Beyonce and Jay-Z are together and he owns Tidal. That's fine. Or whatever. I mean, you know, having a small window I think is okay. But saying like it will never be anywhere else, which is what they've said. Streaming wise, it will never be able for streaming anywhere else. That just seems like it's bad for everybody.
Should there be a level of transparency when it comes to these exclusive windows, or should it just be the way it is right now? Because it seems like, I believe it's like a New York Times report that said that it would be on sale at the end of Sunday, and some people were angry because they didn't know that when they started up. Do you think these companies or these artists should be like, okay, look, it's an exclusive window, 3 weeks, choose what you want, or should they just do the dark, keep you in the dark kind of thing?
I mean, yeah, obviously, I think they should be transparent. Whether it should be the law for them to say that or not, I think existing laws against false advertising and fraud probably cover it. And if they're saying you can't get it any other way and then change that, that's a problem. If they just didn't tell you that it was on sale, well, that's not nice. I don't know if that's illegal. I do think that they're better served with their audience and not angering the audience, and they ought to tell them ahead of time. But then again, Tidal's got a 30-day free trial. So if you signed up for Tidal just to get that album, then found out you could buy it, you can always cancel.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
No, that's it. I was going to move us on, unless you got something else to say.
Well, no, I think we wrapped everything on a nice little bow. Let's leave it there.
Yeah, I think we solved all the music industry's problems.
We fixed it.
Yep.
We did it.
Here's something that's pretty cool, though. Our pick of the day comes from Chris, who was listening to our discussion about tipping on Monday. This can solve some of your issues around tipping, especially if you're not from the United States and you're like, we don't tip where I'm from. Or if you're from the United States and you're like, does this country accept tips? Is that going to be rude? Who2tip.net. Chris says, my friend Richard Powell is trying to condense who and how to tip etiquette from around the world. Starts by country. Then you go into the country and it breaks it down by type of service, whether you're talking about restaurants or cabs or hotels. It's really nicely done. Who2tip.net can help you figure out what to do there.
That sounds really handy. This is, I guess, in reaction to the whole Uber thing that did that actually change?
Chris was hearing us talking about the tipping situation. I guess we were still talking about it on Monday, but it was Friday's topic about now Uber allows tips. Someone said that there's a way to tip in the Uber app. Uber has told Fortune that they don't expect to add that. So I don't know what app he was looking at. I have not seen that. Lyft, on the other hand, does include it in the app, which is
Could be
nice.
confusing the two.
Send your picks to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can find more picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. Our message of the day comes from Rick, currently in Chicagoland, or at least he was when he sent this email. We have no idea where he is now. Hope you're okay, Rick. Says, your story about associations and Uber reminds me about my experience umpiring youth and high school baseball. Umpires are independent contractors and usually join an association that helps provide injury insurance. The larger national associations are involved with working with the national baseball organizations like the National Federation of High Schools on rule changes for the following season. Many associations also are schedulers for the area and will take all of the umpires' availability, location information, and then schedule them into games. They have policies on how many games you're allowed to decline after being scheduled, which sounds similar to policies on Uber. I can definitely see how forming an association could help independent contractor drivers have an advocate that represents a large number of independent contractors and will be able to work with the ride-sharing companies on setting rules that are in all the parties' interests. I had another guy on Twitter point out that he's a referee, and he's like, they give me a take it or leave it contract. I don't get to negotiate it. So just the power to negotiate doesn't actually determine whether you're an independent contractor or not.
Negotiations like, yes, I will take it. No, I won't take it. That's the entire negotiation.
He was like, that's pretty much the only negotiating freedom that I have. But yeah, there's some specific rules about what you're allowed, how you're allowed to claim that someone's an independent contractor. And those rules are guidance. That's the other problem, is there isn't a hard and fast test that is infallible. It's all court decided. It's kind of like fair use. There are things that they can point out and say, usually if it's this case, you're considered an employee. Usually if it's this case, you're considered an independent contractor. Things like, do you have to follow a certain procedure, or do you just have to deliver the thing? Can you use your own equipment, or do you have to use the company's equipment? But there's nothing definitive about it.
That brings me back to law school. That reminds me, a long time ago.
Sorry to give you the flashbacks there. Well, that's it for this episode of Daily Tech News Show. Thank you, Iyaz Akhtar, for joining. This was fantastic.
Well, thank you for having me. It's fun to talk about tech with you, because that's what we do.
Been too long. We should do it more often.
Okay, let's do it again.
Absolutely. Folks, if you want to find more of Iyaz Akhtar, you can follow him on Twitter, twitter.com/Iyaz. Go to cnet.com and look for his fine works there. You got anything in particular to point people towards?
Yeah, why not do this? So I'm doing a lot more independent work. So if you guys are like, hey, I like your independent work, or you're like, wait, you have independent work? Go to patreon.com/Iyaz. That's IYAZ. And you can see that we're doing a couple of shows. We hit a certain goal, we'll start a new old show again. So there's a bunch of stuff I'm working on. So there's that.
Patreon.com/Iyaz?
That's a thing.
When did you launch this?
This was a couple months ago. Now, I did it very quietly because I wanted to make sure I could do the work. As people were giving me money to do the work, I felt more obligated to do the work. So I wanted to make sure I could keep up with everybody. So we're on a good pace. We're doing an entertainment review podcast again. I used to do it with my best friend. It's 10 years going now in July, so I wanted to really restart it and messing around with other shows independently.
Well, I'm backing it right now because you only had 14 backers because you didn't tell anybody about it.
I'm very quiet. I didn't want to be too pushy yet. But
I understand. Believe me, I totally understand.
Yes, you can relate. Once I move out of this apartment, maybe I'll be full court press. But
well, you got your 15th backer. I'm confirming
thank you,
and
Tom.
pledging right this second.
I
Check it out.
appreciate
Yeah, I love what you do, man. It's cool. Patreon.com/Iyaz. Folks, if you want to support this show, I just supported Iyaz. Make the world go round. DailyTechNewsShow.com/support has all the different ways you can support this show. We basically took the value for value model that Adam Curry and John Dvorak use on No Agenda and applied it to this show and said, look, if we're helping you out, if we're helping you understand tech news and you enjoy it, put a dollar amount on that and give it back to us. Patreon.com/DTNS or some other way at DailyTechNewsShow.com/support. And of course, we understand not everybody has the flexibility to do that. And if you don't, if you honestly don't, just tell people about the show. Tell some other folks. Spread the word. Do some iTunes reviews. Get the word out there so that more people know that we exist. We don't take advertising. We don't place advertising. So we rely entirely on you. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can give us a call, 512-59-DAILY. That's 593-2459. Catch the show live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And visit our website, dailytechnewsshow.com. I'm off tomorrow. Scott Johnson hosting the show with Jen Cutter as his guest. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Boom. It's like
show.
old times. Good stuff.
It was so easy to yap about text. The point I was gonna make, that I was like, we could kill it on that one, was the idea that there could be a company one day that's known as like the nice streaming company. That's like, yeah, we'll tell you how long the windows are. We're just gonna tell you, all right, up front. We're actually not like the other guys, so we all have exclusives, and it's gonna be great, but we're gonna tell you the truth.
They could compete on that, yeah.
Like hover.com, not to give them a promotion, but yeah, I like their
or
stuff.
Ting, which is same company.
Yeah, 2 cows. They're just like, it's going to cost you a little bit more, but we're not going to screw you. It's like,
yeah, we'll be fair about telling you what you get.
Big fan of that.
Yeah, me too. What do we got for titles at showbot.tv? Also, thanks for scrambling to get that Apple stuff like just in time,
it just,
Roger.
it's like, whoa, it just came in. And their info was all over the place. Top of the heap is 6-second rule. I had to read that because he used the number 6. 6 second. To infinity, Dropbox and beyond. Veil detection. iPad Air to the throne. Ways to hack Waze. How you doing?
I do like SDC FSS. Just a mess of letters from the self-driving car thing.
Oh, right. Known as Stugufsks.
So Apple's sitting on a cash pile of $233 billion.
Yeah, I mean, they are okay. They're not hurting.
Yeah, they're fine. I think they can buy
all right.
they can buy airlines if they wanted to.
Really, I mean, you need that. There's no company forever has had a consistent straight trend up. You need a downward and up and out. You need a breather.
That way they can say we beat last quarter.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's
saving it for a rainy day.
Yeah. That or someone's going to embezzle those billions of dollars and live in a tropical island.
No, making a climb to the top of Showbot here. Disclaimer: Beyonce's hubby works at Tidal. I'm voting for that.
You may now take a selfie. Time charter cable. Apple TV false starts. Let's see. It's the Silver Stream on stream. Lionsgate streams.
All right, I'm writing in the ID3 tags. What are we calling it?
So, disclaimer: Beyonce's hubby works at Tidal.
Really? That's kind of long. That's my only.
What about 6-second rule?
You guys like the disclaimer one?
What do you think, iyaz?
I voted for it. I'm also a fan of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, so I'm not good at short titles.
All right, let's see.
It's more of a statement than a title.
It fits.
It
fits.
I don't like stores or restaurants with very short names.
Yeah. All right, we're using it.
What was the one?
Exporting now.
Nosh. I didn't like Nosh. That was a stupid name for a restaurant.
It was called Nosh Place.
It was just called Nosh.
Do you not like the hotel, the W, because its name's too long, or does it only apply to restaurants?
I've never stayed at the W.
Or is it syllable? Syllable-wise, W is quite long to say. Now, is
W? It's true.
Now, Nosh is done.
Yeah.
Nosh is shorter than W.
Yes.
Depending on your metric.
Say W 3 times fast. WWW versus Nosh. Nosh.
You gotta say a lot of noshes before you hit 3 W's.
Makes me hungry to say nosh.
Well, yeah, it's weird. I mean, it's certain words are easier to say, not because of the syllable count, but because of the intonation on the words. So certain consonants don't work very well together.
Now, Roger, did you realize you didn't like places that had one-syllable names or short names after a series of them, or did you decide not to like them first?
I didn't like. No, I when I started noticing more of them, it kind of felt annoying. I don't know why. It's like it's at that French clothing store that's FCUK.
Mm-hmm.
I just it just looks annoying. It just looks.
Well, it looks like if your brain does a little trick, it could be a naughty word.
It just it just feels pretentious.
That word Veronica said yesterday on the show.
She didn't say anything. You have no evidence, Tom.
Sorry.
No evidence. You have an apology, but for what? We'll never know.
We'll never know. Only live knowers know for sure.
And they could have been hallucinating. Mass hallucination.
Actually, I think it's still in the audio version in the treasure chest. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, I didn't realize that YouTube only allows you to download the full version, not like the half
Oh, it
rate.
doesn't give you the edited one.
Not the edited, because you told me to edit it out, but
Yeah.
I went to download the video and it's like the HD version, not just the SD, which would have been faster.
Well, it depends on how fast you get to it. Like it'll give you the SD version if you download right away because it's still converting them. It's weird. You get a different. You might get a different resolution depending on when you download it.
This is for YouTube?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
When you do from the creator tool, you can choose to
yeah.
download your own video.
So I downloaded it, edited in Premiere, and then re-exported it.
So what else is going on, Iyaz?
The move is taking up a lot of my brain space.
Where are you moving? Just different place or
a bigger place? So we got
cool.
a decent one bedroom here, and my son stays over, and his bed's actually in the back. There's a little loft bed. But now that he's older, we can go higher. So there's other lofted spaces that we found another apartment that has basically a loft space over a lot of the apartment. So it's a lot of freaking space for somebody who's not super tall, or me just sitting down normally. So it's actually quite a tall loft space. So it's going to give us a ton more floor space in general. So
that's great.
It's one block away.
So does your son sleep in the living room or?
Well, no. So the living room we got over there. This space is what was the living room. We're like, we'll just give him that space. The dog sleeps under him. That's
protecting him. Yeah.
One or the other.
Or he's protecting the dog.
Yeah, it's funny because there are two beds. So sometimes I find the boy laying on one of the beds with a tablet, trying to explain to Tori the dog what's going on the tablet.
Wow, he's instructing the dog. That's excellent.
Yeah, I think it's teaching him the ways of Star Wars. He won't stop singing the Star Wars song. Either one. The main theme.
You must be proud.
It was listen when you hear the Imperial March like 1,000 times in the course of going to the bus.
Mm-hmm.
You don't like it so much.
It becomes equivalent to Wheels on the Bus at that point.
It's just like, okay, listen, kid, I love you, but could you not just for just 3 minutes? 3 minutes, okay? I'll give you whatever.
Just switch to Leia's theme or something. Come on.
And then,
I don't even know that one.
It's in one of his games. It's one of the background music that plays. So he really likes it, and he saw the movies, and he really likes them too. So, So things are going pretty good over here. I mean, Liz is going to be back.
Good. Yeah. If that's your complaint, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Liz is coming back from work now, so she's tired, so that's good.
Hi, Liz.
Hello. Wait, it's good she's tired?
No, it's that was me being sarcastic. If she's tired, that's not good for anybody.
Yeah.
Nobody heard that. She's actually on her way home. She's not actually here. She would.
Oh, okay.
I'm assuming she would say, "Hi, Tom. Hi, Roger."
Sure.
She wrote back. She just texted, "Great." So I'm assuming that's got to be it.
Does she work? Does she work in Manhattan?
Yeah, she works at this place called Vornado. They're one of the biggest commercial real estate companies in New York.
Oh,
Vornado.
Does that help you get your new place?
It's commercial real estate.
Yeah, okay.
That's the problem. I was like, can we just live like at the Garden as a square garden? I know they're renovating it, but
you got a great deal on a locker.
Instead of sell urban hammocks.
Instead of getting 500 square feet, here's 20,000 square feet. Now the rent, that's going to be a couple $1 million a month.
But think of all the events that you could do.
I can rent out the space. It's like, yes, this is our parlor. We rent this out to the Rolling Stones occasionally. How about you guys? How you doing?
Good, man. I'm doing good.
I am all right. I too am also contemplating a move, so I have a lot of things I need to think about.
The contemplation is enough stress for the day. I think you should stop doing that for the rest of the day.
Well, it's like, how do you move 6.5 hours away, but making sure all the stuff I want to keep intact is intact? Actually, when you moved back to New York, did you sell everything and just take like a small group of stuff?
I sold a lot of stuff. I got rid of a lot of stuff. I donated a lot of stuff. Some stuff I was gonna sell, somebody threw up by accident, so they had to write me a big fat check. But then my prized possession, my Eames chair, got damaged on the cross-country move. And I was so livid. I told Liz, I'm like, you need to talk to them or I will hurt somebody. So,
but they were bonded movers, right?
Yeah, but the insurance was per pound, and so it doesn't fix the chair as it was. So I had to pay myself for it, which was fun. So if you have anything that you really think is valuable to you, pay for the insurance on it directly, not per pound. And what else should you do? Don't get it attached to stuff. There's my my tip.
I have that X-Wing fighter I put together, the masterpiece X-Wing fighter from Lego. Originally, it was like $70, but I got it to Toys R Us for $50 because it's on sale. It took me 3 hours to put together. I'm considering gluing it together. Like I know it's kind of an anathema for.
Can you shrink wrap it?
Well, that's my idea. So there's little pieces that I'll try to glue on, and then I'm going to take it apart into its 3 component sections, and then shrink wrap.
I see.
Well, maybe not shrink wrap, but use.
Just bring it down when you fly down to look for places. Just bring it down on the plane. And then give it to me, and I'll keep it here in the garage.
Huh. And then open up the garage, and you just have like all these things.
It's just
It's
in my box of Lego pieces. Like, oh, yeah, I figured you just put it together again.
I only mixed it with these other 8,000 pieces.
Well, like, what did you do for your computer? Did you have a desktop PC you moved?
Yeah, my desktop was a part of the stuff that got moved. I had the original box for my Mac Pro. I just shipped over. This original box is for my monitors.
That's what I was saying I did with mine, and Roger's like, I built my PC, so there's no original box.
Yeah.
Well, you can get foam. That's not like impossible.
Yeah. Sure.
But the monitor boxes, that's usually the big one. Monitors and the TV, though, I had professionally packed. And they were like...
That's the only box I have left is the TV. The monitor I got secondhand, so I don't have a box for it.
Was it a good monitor?
It's a 23. It's an old one. I bought it 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, like mine at this point, they get so hot because it's old technology, it's fluorescent instead of like LEDs. So it gets like a super hot box. I'm like, I don't really even need this anymore. It's just that attachment of I bought it. Yeah. But yeah, most of the stuff I've made sure that we packed away nicely and neatly. My Hulk 181 comic book, that did fly on the plane with me. Like, I kept that with me. I would not let anybody touch it.
So I have
read it on the plane?
I have 8 long boxes. I'm going to tape those shut. I have 8 long boxes.
Well,
8 long boxes and 6 shorties.
Those will survive.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's nothing... All the stuff that used to be valuable in it is probably no longer valuable. I mean, it was valuable sometime in 97. But the interest on those particular issues...
It's the value to you, though. I mean, like...
Yeah, that's why I want to move.
That's the hard thing with insurance, right? Is like, there are things that I have that insurance will be like, that is not worth more than $20. I'm like, yeah, but to me...
To me, it's worth your life.
And it's irreplaceable. Like, you can't... Like, the example is not a move damage, but my dog, Django, chewed up a Christmas ornament that my grandpa had made. So it's not replaceable.
That's a little rough.
Yeah, stuff like that.
No pun intended.
You can't resurrect my grandfather from the dead and have him make another one.
That's the other thing. I'm like, I have all my Transformers. I'll just stick them in the box.
My collectibles in general, I got rid of a while ago. I think that's before I moved to California, so make sure I didn't have a lot there. Then I came over here again, and most of my stuff's fungible though. Like I can like get new stuff anywhere because it's the same old crappy stuff. The next place though, I'm planning on staying a lot longer because I need to have things built for it. Yay.
Well, like how does rent work? Do you do it on an annual lease, or can you once you sign in for a new place?
It should be a year lease. We told them this time that we can do 2 years if they want. So if they want security, if they're afraid, because in Manhattan you have to make 40 times the rent.
Jeez.
I'm not making that up because I thought that number was ridiculous. And if you have a guarantor, they need to make 80 times the rent.
Wait, so like, what would the rent be? I mean, like, is it like $4,000 a month?
I don't make that much money, but yeah, something like that. I don't make that much money.
No, that's like, how does that even work?
Well, so the thing is, in my neighborhood, so this is a fun story. In my neighborhood, I am the scum of the neighborhood. Okay. So everyone else here makes way more money than I do. So I'm walking around and I'm like, look at that trash. It's awesome because like they're throwing out awesome stuff here. So if you're looking for good trash, Upper West Side.
Upper West Side.
There you go.
The scavenger of Hell's Kitchen. Iyaz Akhtar.
Or north of Hell's Kitchen. Hell's Kitchen. We looked at Hell's Kitchen. And the thing is that the subway stop there is Times Square.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, I am not daily
Yeah,
going
yeah.
to I'm not leaving. I can transfer at Times Square.
Sure.
But going out when people are just standing
Going
there.
upstairs, yeah.
And the humans.
So many humans.
All the humans. There's a lot less tourists here.
That's good, right? Or no?
Yeah, it's better to have less tourists.
I don't know. You should look at Hell's Kitchen, though. With Daredevil and Jessica Jones out, prices may have gone down. I hear there's ninjas in this neighborhood. I don't want to live here.
I heard something, but it was so quiet I wasn't really sure.
I thought I heard a sword.
Yeah.
But
all right. Well, I'm done. I've uploaded. So thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. We'll see you later. I'm going to stop the stream now. Scott Johnson has the show tomorrow. Bye.